In the old church before the bombing of 1940, there were galleries along each side, and at the end of each gallery, as you find in many churches of a similar design today, you found a room and various things to take place in there, such as children playing. It's a Sunday school room. When the bomb fell and the rebuilding happened and it was decided not to have galleries again, for some reason they didn't take away the room that was already there, but they merely bricked it up. Before we redecorated a couple of years ago, you could see on the wall behind me the outline of the door, but now there only remains one way of getting up into our own secret room. So as we walk into the sacristy, the first room we come to, the service sacristy. As we look up, we can find one small hatch for getting into a room where hardly anyone has been for the last 80 years. Climbing up through the hole is not an easy business, which is why so few people have come up here over the years, and in fact so few people know that it even exists. But here we are in a room that feels like a time capsule bricked up from the bombed church, and we're going to explore some of the things that were left up here inexplicably, because there are so many artefacts which could have been taken away. We also find up here remains of the history of the other parish church, St. Peter's Church, which had its own library as well. And some of the books we're about to look at came from that library and that store, which was moved down here when the church closed in the early 1920s. But on top of the books, before we start exploring here, what we see is a lot of toys, remembering that this was a room where children played during the service. And we can see some fairly ancient toys here which presumably survived the bombing of 1940. We've got a train here and a Spitfire, remembering that December 1940 was only 2 or 3 months after the Battle of Britain, and a boat train as well. It is of course a seafarers' church, so it wouldn't be complete without a toy boat. And in other places we can find the things that children played with many, many decades ago. Here are jigsaws. Nothing really much changes, does it? Though Cadbury's drinking chocolate has changed its logo since then. Most of the books up here are of a religious nature, and here is a book from 1696, an annotation of the Holy Bible, and by the late Mr. Matthew Poole. It's the third edition. Unfortunately, we only seem to have volume 1 of that particular dusty book, but the other books here also tell of the age in which they were printed. Here is the parish hymn book, our own parish, the Church of Our Lady in St. Nicholas, Liverpool, from 1917. And then just a few decades later on, we've got a copy of The Student World from the first quarter of 1932. Unfortunately, this particular edition focused on disarmament, which didn't work out so well in that decade. Other books up here are large books of common prayer, mainly from St. Peter's, and amongst it all are things such as this capstan navy cut cigarette tin and some other unidentified bits of metal. There's an element of mystery about this room. I can't understand why it was decided to brick it up and leave half a window with an unexplained room behind it. Not that many people have been up here or seen it since the war. But every generation has left its own mark on this building and on this city. And the bombings of 1940 and 41 left us this little time capsule. Next week, we're going to have a further look at how we're contributing to the archives of the parish today and what mark the pandemic is going to leave on our records.